I call this meeting of the Onslow County Board of Commissioners to order. First thing tonight, we'll have a word of prayer by Ms. Moxley and then the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Cotton. Ms. Moxley.
Let us pray. Almighty and eternal God, thank you for giving us another day. Bless our community and all who are gathered here this evening to observe or participate in this meeting. We look upon the responsibilities before us. Grant us wisdom when we make good decisions here tonight, strength to do what is right, and please urge us to have compassion for those we meet. Heavenly Father, guide our commissioners through the complexities of life and governance. Grant them insight, inspiration, and industry as they work for the good of our county. Lord, we ask for your watchful care over our men and women in uniform, especially those in harm's way and their families. Loving and gracious God, we give you thanks for the beauty of our county as the blossoms of spring burst forth with the promise of hope. We ask that you help us to conduct ourselves in such a way that by our service, we demonstrate gratitude to the citizens of this county for the work they have given us to do. Now, dear Lord, with deep respect for the faith, traditions, and beliefs of all who are gathered here, hear us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. David Cotton, Deputy County Manager, will now lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone who's in attendance tonight, and to those that are watching by television, welcome. If you have not turned your cell phones off, please do so now. The board affords the public 2 opportunities to speak at each meeting. If you would like to speak, please sign up in the back of the room, indicating either the 3-minute time slot or the 5-minute time slot. The 3-minute time slot should reflect some item that's on the agenda tonight. At the 5-minute time slot, you can speak on any topic that the Board of Commissioners has authority over. When you come forth, please adjust the microphone and make sure the clerk has your name and address. Address your comments to the board in its entirety. We ask that you be civil and respectful in your comments, and there will be no audience participation at that time, and we do not endorse any business or candidacy. According to the rules of procedure, the Board of Commissioners will save their responses to public comment. At this time, I need a motion to adopt the agenda. A second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Has everybody had a chance to see the consent agenda? I need a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
All in favor of adopting the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. At this time, we'll have our first public comment. Mr. Manager, is anyone signed up?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is the first public comment period. During this first public comment period, there is a 3-minute time limit. In accordance with the Board's rules of procedure, Commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the Commissioner comment period at the end of the agenda. All comments must be directly issue-oriented with the agenda items on for this meeting during this first public comment session. The first individual that signed up to speak is Mr. Robert Osbeck of 612 Weeping Willow Lane, Jacksonville. Mr. Osbeck, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with you this evening. I'm here to speak on behalf or as a proponent of the proposed county range here in Onslow County. I'm a retired Marine, served 20 years, retired here in Onslow County, have lived here for 6 years. My wife is well established with a career. We've got our family here in Onslow County. This is our home. The reason why I'd like to speak with you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, is because I believe that the proposed range is a no-lose situation for the citizens of this county. In addition to being an obvious solution to a lack of shooting areas within the county, which has posed a problem throughout the state and federal game lands located in our vicinity, as evidenced by the fact that the North Carolina Wildlife Commission had to shut down recreational fire throughout the state and federal game lands in this area. I believe that if this action is adopted, it's going to bring to Onslow County, or the citizens of Onslow County, a safe, a fun, a structured area for us to be able to go out and exercise our rights, to be able to engage in the sports that we see fit to engage in and that we enjoy. I believe it brings things to our community, such as an increased readiness for our sheriff's office, being that it will provide them a facility to be able to train, which helps them serve the people of Onslow County. Addition to that, I'd like to be able to speak to as far as what it would bring to the county as far as visitors. I'm a competitive shooter. I've been shooting 3-gun for approximately 4 years. I'm a certified range safety officer for 3-Gun Nation, a national and now an international shooting organization. I travel typically in upwards of 3 to 5 hours to be able to compete at matches. I'm not the exception. I'm the rule in terms of folks that participate in 3-Gun Nation and in competitive shooting sports in general. If we open a facility that allows us to be able to host events here in Onslow County, what's going to happen is we're going to bring folks in from 3 to 5 hours away to the county. We're going to fill our hotels with guests. We're going to fill our restaurants with customers. We're going to fill our stores with shoppers. So in closing, what I'd like to do is just thank the ladies and gentlemen of the board for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the event. I hope with every ounce of my being that this proposal is given due consideration. But more importantly, I thank you for even considering the possibility of bringing something like this to the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next individual to speak is Mr. Basil Davila of 626 Stagecoach Drive, Jacksonville. Mr. Davila, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes.
Good evening, all, and thank you for the opportunity that you grant us. I am not opposed to this range. My questions that I bring to the board are probably simple. I mean, this was just brought to my attention probably like 3-4 hours ago. It was dropped into our office, and I really haven't had much time to go over it except for a few concerns regarding the possibility of this public range becoming a privately operated range. And with that matter, I'll explain. I'm the owner-operator of the Sportsman's Lodge. Sportsman's Lodge has been here in town for the past 25 years. The proximity to this range is probably like 5 miles from where we operate. And it's actually, if they place this range, it's going to be between the 2 other ranges here in town. If this range is being probably proposed, let's say, in the outskirts of Richlands or somewhere farther to that vicinity or that area, they're probably more beneficial for all those people that live in that area there, rather than putting the 3 ranges in the same radius area. My concern, what I was explaining, was regarding the private management of the range. If are they going to be in the same playing field as the other 2 ranges are? For example, property tax. Are they going to pay for property taxes versus like what we do, or what's that going to be? And that's one of our concerns, being so close to our proximity to where we are. With that said, I do believe that Onslow County needs an outdoor range. I'm just a little concerned with the proximity to the other 2 ranges that we have versus if it was in a farther location that will benefit the whole county versus the left side or the closest county near New Bern. And once again, I appreciate your time that you offer me, and thank you again.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's the last individual that signed up for the first public comment period.
Okay. Mr. Manager, would you take the next few items and present them to the board, please?
I will, Madam Chair. The next item is item 4, general items. The first item is actually one which I will be presenting along with Mr. Benjamin Warren, and also we have a guest with us, Mr. Eric Christofferson, the Deputy Director of Operations from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. That is item A under general items. Commissioners, as I begin to present this item, I would like to say that before you this evening is a request to make a request. Before you this evening is a resolution. It is resolution for the Board of Commissioners, number 16-003, entitled State of North Carolina, County of Onslow Partnership to Create a Public Shooting Range at Onslow County Depuy Park. If I may, Commissioners, there are 2 or 3 parts of the presentation. First, I'd just like to generally talk about the background of how this came about and how it came to be a request to the board to make a request. Secondly, I'd like to read into the record for your consideration Resolution 16-003. And then finally, we have a PowerPoint presentation with some pictures to show you and the audience. Several months ago, North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission contacted Onslow County and made us aware of a grant program that's been effective in other parts of North Carolina. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission is able to create public shooting ranges, a lot of times in partnership with a local entity, to allow the public a place to safely practice and discharge their firearms. Now, in Onslow County, and actually the surrounding counties around Onslow, there aren't a lot of different places to shoot. Certainly, in Onslow County, we have 2 ranges, Sportsman's Lodge, as you heard earlier during public comment, and Flatwoods Outfitters. I did personally visit both of those private shops today and gave them a copy of the white paper. Although this has been reported in the Jacksonville Daily News, I realize not everyone reads the newspaper, and I did not want tonight to go by without having had a personal touch with those 2 businesses. So they knew basically everything that's in the county commissioner's book this evening. Other than those 2 public shooting ranges, right now there are some shooting opportunities on base, but if you don't have ready access to the facilities aboard Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune, then you're not able to go there. There are not a lot of other places in eastern North Carolina. In fact, in the package of materials, you have a map that's from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission website that shows you all of the private and all of the public shooting ranges in a wide area. And there seems to be a gap within the Kinston, Jacksonville, Maysville kind of area where there aren't a lot of public shooting opportunities. Since we have a county where we've been urbanizing with rapid population growth, what we're seeing is this a very different county than when I grew up here. When I grew up, my cousins and I would go on family land, or we would go on people's land that we knew, squirrel hunting or just target practicing. It was nothing because 258 was a 2-lane road. Rhodestown Road was a dirt road. Now, all of those fields have turned into houses. And as the sheriff can attest, we have had increasing problems in the community when people have been shooting illegally, in some cases even impacting people's dwellings. They're not knowing what's downrange. So that's been a problem. We've also had problems in public game lands where people that are target practicing are literally mowing down trees with bullets. That's not necessarily the safest place to be doing it either. So when North Carolina Wildlife contacted me and said there was this grant program, it seemed like a fairly attractive thing. The grant program would allow North Carolina Wildlife to partner with a local entity. North Carolina Wildlife would build a range setup, so they would completely fund the ranges. The county would need to find property for that range, and the county would have to build any supporting facilities. So we began a search of existing county properties. We looked at old landfill sites. We looked at properties all across the county that the county owned since the 1940s or 1950s. A lot of those places, like the rest of the county, have been developed. Old landfill sites have houses 30 feet away from them or in close proximity. There's only really one location that in our search, which lasted several months, that we could find where the county had access to property, where there was no one in close proximity, and that was Deppy Park. Deppy Park is an Onslow County park, one of 5 regional parks that Onslow County has. Now, why were we specifically looking for something remote or rural? There is no state ordinance that says that a shooting range can't be located adjacent to something else. There is no county ordinance that says a shooting range can't be located adjacent to something else. In fact, at Flatwoods Outfitters, I was there this afternoon, there are houses and development that's taken place just across the road from Flatwoods. At Sportsman's Lodge, which is mainly, I understand, an indoor facility, there's other commercial development nearby. However, North Carolina Wildlife realizes that we all need to be good neighbors and good stewards. So as individuals have purchased their homes, perhaps if their homes are already built and are on the ground, they would not particularly like a shooting range to come in right next door to them, even though that might be the right of a private developer or property owner, depending on zoning and land use regulations. So we tried to find land that was not located near an existing home or residence. Deppy Park is a 372-acre county park. It's located in Hoffman Forest, and the closest residence is a single-wide mobile home that's 0.6 of a mile away. And in fact, we've been trying to determine if that home is actually occupied. There is still a power account that's active. However, there doesn't appear to be a lot of movement or life at the location. In fact, the car is parked in the same place as some of our 2012 aerial photos of Onslow County. Mm-hmm. So at least the car isn't moving. Other houses are even farther away from Deppy Park. So Deppy Park seemed like a pretty good location in that it's not near something, it's along a major thoroughfare, and it's nothing that Onslow County would have to purchase, that we would not have to go out and buy land. We already control Deppy Park's 372 acres. Currently, it's leased until 2032. On tonight's agenda, as part of this resolution, we're requesting that the board unilaterally extend that lease to 2052, which can be done purely at the will of this Board of County Commissioners. Now, as I said, this is a leased park. Our other 4 county parks are owned by Onslow County. Now, even though it's the largest regional county park at 372 acres, it is the least used of all county parks. In fact, Deppy Park accounts for only 4.2% of all usage of all county parks. There are a few amenities that are located at Deppy Park. There is a hiking or walking trail through the woods. There is 1 sand volleyball court. There's 1 horseshoe pit. There's 1 tot lot. There's 1 picnic shelter. And then there are a couple of maintenance items, like a tractor shed and a little bit of chain link fence. There's a composting toilet. The soils in that general area are not suitable, very, very much suitable anyhow, for septic. There is a way to do that for a septic site we've determined, but right now there's no access to sanitary sewer. The closest sewer system is at the city of Jacksonville. Deppy Park's entrance road is around 5.6 miles from the Jacksonville city limits. And also, coincidentally, Deppy Park's entrance is about 5 miles from the Jones County line, the Onslow-Jones County line. So it's just about halfway between Jones County and the city of Jacksonville. As we were looking at the site, we of course had to partner with the staff at North Carolina Wildlife. We asked them actually about a number of different sites, and some, as I said earlier, were just not deemed to be usable. Some had bad topography in addition to people that had built very close by. We had an on-site meeting with North Carolina Wildlife where we actually walked the site, and everyone agrees that the topography of the property and as the design or layout of the plat would be conducive to a shooting range facility. We have asked a lot of different people locally what they thought about the concept. And in the package of information that you have this evening, you have different letters of support, because this idea of a state-county partnership is one which, of course, involves the state and the county, and it's not the first time we've done this. Onslow County has partnered with North Carolina Wildlife very successfully in the past. The most recent example has been Jacksonville Landing, where we built a real state-of-the-art boat launch facility with the City of Jacksonville, NCDOT, North Carolina Wildlife, and Onslow County, where Onslow County actually donated the waterfront property. We've also partnered with NC Wildlife down in Sneads Ferry. There's a Sneads Ferry boat ramp there, and in the Swansboro area, there's Shell Rock Landing. So we have a relationship already with North Carolina Wildlife, and I would like to think that's one of the reasons they called us. They knew that we did our research and that we could be counted on if we were a partner to do our part. So in looking at partnership, we made contact with a number of different people. Our legislative delegation, Senator Brown, Representative Shepard, Representative Millis, Representative Cleveland, all of whom have indicated their complete support. Also Sheriff Miller. Sheriff Miller's office has a lot of the calls for what happens out in the county. And so we wanted to make sure, is this something that would help you? And actually there's a letter from Sheriff Miller in the package. We thought about the Onslow County school system. Is this public shooting range one that could be used by them? And Superintendent of Schools Rick Stout has submitted a letter that says if in fact this goes through, this might be an opportunity for high schools to further shooting sports in Onslow County. And we also talked with the City of Jacksonville. One of the questions that we had was whether or not Jacksonville had any existing plans or future plans to extend sewer toward Hoffman Forest. We've been assured that if that happens, it would be an extremely long time in the future. And while the corridor of Highway 17 North seems like a natural growth corridor, the City of Jacksonville, specifically the city manager of Jacksonville, has indicated his support for a range. They own over 7,000 acres of land that's spray fields, and their spray fields are also taking damage from illegal shooting or trespassers on their property that are shooting up sprinkler heads for the sanitary sewer system, etc. So basically, there is a lot of support, I believe, for a partnership. Now, in terms of what the county would provide, I covered the state earlier. The state would be looking at range facilities itself, like they've done in Caswell or Cleveland County or other places. The county would have to supply both the land and support facilities. And in your package this evening, you received information on the types of support facilities that the county would have to provide. Like bathroom facilities, additional parking lot, sidewalks, things of that nature. A range house specifically would address the bathroom standpoint. Our environmental health and soil scientists have located some soils on the site that would be able to possibly put in a septic tank system that would serve the area. However, if the soils upon further study don't work out, we could still revert to vault toilets, which is basically really fancy modern outhouses. We would prefer not to do that. Having said that, so why, if this all sounds so great, is this an ask for a request? And that is because the land, the Hoffman Forest itself, is owned by the Endowment Fund of the state of North Carolina. And there's another group called the Natural Resources Foundation that actually manages Hoffman Forest. So the Natural Resources Foundation and the Endowment Fund of North Carolina signed the original lease of property to Onslow County years ago. And in that lease, the county did not negotiate the timber rights of Deppy Park inside Hoffman Forest. So any modification of what's there now would require the foundation and the Endowment Fund of North Carolina to sign off on a modification of the original plan. Now, I would like to note that the documentation that we have does have a conceptual drawing of Deppy Park, but it does not in fact have a final diagram or as-built drawing of Deppy Park in the paperwork. So one of the actual first things that I did, but before I talked with our legislative delegation, before I talked with Speaker Moore's office or anyone else, is I called who I believe to be the fee simple owner or the representative of the fee simple owner of the property. And that was Mr. Ralph Ritchie with the Endowment Fund of North Carolina State University. He is the Director of Real Estate for the Endowment Fund. And I asked Mr. Ritchie if there was anyone else I needed to talk to. Mr. Ritchie assured me as the Director of Real Estate that he was the person that should be talked to. And so I forwarded a lot of information to him. And Mr. Ritchie said that he would be meeting with the foundation himself. In fact, Mr. Ritchie has a 10:30 a.m. meeting tomorrow morning with the North Carolina Natural Resources Foundation. So at that meeting in the morning, I expect that they will discuss the proposal, the request, should this Board of Commissioners choose to adopt it. All of the discussions and all of the research so far has been at the staff level. Staff, specifically the county manager, does not constitute the official request of the County of Onslow. It is my job to research thoroughly everything, to make sure that I know who would be in favor of it, who might be against it, and to provide the Board of Commissioners with information, letters of support. I've done that in the white paper that you had in your agenda package. The official request, if any, would come from the county commissioners, and that would go to the Endowment Fund of North Carolina State University and the Natural Resources Foundation of North Carolina State University. At that time, their boards would have to consider what request Onslow County has made. Now, in talking with Senator Brown, the senator indicated to me, Jeff, one of the missions of the Natural Resources Foundation is to raise money for the university. And he asked, would you be allowed to charge a fee for usage of the range? And in fact, we are proposing a fee. In my conversations with Mr. Christofferson, who once again is here tonight, we talked about a fee which would cover range operations, hopefully totally, so that we would not have to hit any property tax money for operation of the range. It's a Parks and Recreation function. It needs to be self-supporting. So we would be allowed to charge a range fee. In this package of information, you would see that our range fee is $16. That's $1 higher than the private sector range fees are currently. Our purpose is not to take any customers away from either Flatwoods or Sportsman's Lodge. Our purpose is to take people that are shooting where they shouldn't be shooting, in the backyards and the subdivisions and in fields too close to houses, and to give them a place where they could reasonably go in a very controlled condition with a range safety officer practice as they would like to practice. So with that fee that the county might charge, in your proposal is actually revenue sharing with the Natural Resources Foundation. If in fact the Natural Resources Foundation's job is to raise money for North Carolina State University, well, out of the 372 acres that the county already leases to 2032, and pending your consideration, could be leasing until 2052, North Carolina State will get $0 out of that 372 acres. Now, under this proposal, for the first 5 years, they would get 5% of the revenues that the county would take in. Under years 6 through 10, that would rise to 8%. And after 10 years, they would get 10% of the revenues. So we would offer them a partnership. If you would partner with us to allow this amenity for our citizens, we will revenue share with you in a way that otherwise you would not be able to get. Now, as I understand it, there have been two questions about this proposal. The first question is, well, Hoffman Forest is a very important military training area. And in fact, we heard that clearly when NC State made public their plans to sell all of Hoffman Forest some time ago. At that point in time, the United States Marine Corps said, this is very valuable property. We use dark sky training. We fly over this area at night. So the first concern that we've heard was, well, will this range affect military flights? And I believe there was some erroneous information that may have been given to some people initially, that yes, it would. Well, in fact, in your package, you have an email from Mr. Joe Ramirez from Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. And Mr. Ramirez has staffed this concept, its exact location, throughout the military here locally. It will have no effect on military operations. This range is projected to be a daytime-only range. And in fact, as Mr. Ramirez pointed out to me verbally, they fly over ranges all the time. There are a few military training ranges aboard our bases here locally. So this would not be a problem for the military. The second concern that was stated is, well, if this range is placed at Deppy Park, what if the endowment fund or the North Carolina Natural Resources Foundation wanted to sell that property around it later? And in fact, an employee of the Natural Resources Foundation indicated to me that they intended to sell the property in Hoffman Forest at a later date, at some point in time in the future. And that a range there would prohibit the development of property around Deppy Park. Well, Onslow County zones Deppy Park, at least the 50,000 acres of it inside Onslow County. So at this time, I would like to ask Mr. Ben Warren, our Planning and Development Director, to come to the podium. Mr. Warren can give you specifics about range facilities and development around them, as well as the current zoning of Hoffman Forest. Mr. Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Good evening, Madam Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. As Mr. Hudson pointed out, the entirety of Hoffman Forest within Onslow County is zoned by Onslow County and is currently zoned conservation. And really the primary intent of the conservation zone is to ensure that the natural resources and environmentally sensitive areas are protected from any type of intrusive development. Looking at the uses that are allowed within that zoning district, they are very low intensive type uses, firing ranges being one of those, hunting clubs, forestry, and a handful of other really low impact intrusive type uses that are allowed in the conservation zoning district. Any changes to that zoning would require an amendment to the Onslow County Land Use Plan, which recommends that the forest remain in a conservation zoning district and a conservation state. And then once the land use plan were to be amended, it would also have to come before the Board of Commissioners for a zoning change for any types of changes to the conservation zoning district. But as far as any type of development in and around a shooting range, there are no prohibitions within any of the county's ordinances that would prevent any type of development around those facilities. There are certain setbacks and other controls that are required by the zoning ordinance to construct a range, but there's nothing that would impact development or property or personal property rights on any properties surrounding a firing range.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
That's you'd like me to cover, Mr. Hudson?
Unless the commissioners have questions for you, Mr. Warren.
Any questions about the zoning? You're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Also with me this evening, as I mentioned, is Mr. Eric Christopherson, the Deputy Director of Operations for the North Carolina Wildlife Resources North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. Mr. Christopherson and his staff have been successful in building ranges in other parts of the state. One thing that I would want to assure the public of is that the range that would be built is one which meets lots of safety standards. This is not a range without berming. It is not a range that has no controls. Mr. Christopherson, we've talked quite a lot about our partnership. If you would mind, would you come to the podium and generally describe the program from the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission standpoint?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairman and Commissioners and Mr. Manager for allowing me to be here tonight and speak and show my interest. The Wildlife Commission is currently investing in a statewide shooting range infrastructure. We have 5 shooting ranges. 4 of those we've built and partnered with other counties such as Onslow County in the last 2 years. We have 2 new ranges getting ready to open up in the next 30 to 45 days, one in Cleveland County and one at our Holly Shelter Game Lands. So we are very interested in this region. Obviously, as stated before, the target practicing was banned on Croatan National Forest, and I'll just clarify for the record, we did not ban target practicing on the forest. It was actually the Forest Service that did so, but we did not object because the target practicing in the forest was pretty severe over there. So we looked at this range. Mr. Manager sent us a couple of emails a couple of weeks ago, and crossed through my email and looked at that, and it piqued my interest, and I got another email and a third email that day, and the more I saw of this project, the more I was interested in it. I asked my engineers to visit the site pretty quickly, and I think it was within a day or two that they were on the site looking at it, and the preliminary assessments are all favorable for the project. So we do stand ready. We do have funds for projects like this. We are the beneficiary of Pittman-Robertson funds, which are federal excise taxes on firearms, ammunition, the sale of firearms and ammunition. And we all know there's been an increase in those sales over the last few years, so we do have funds to participate in projects like this. So we do stand ready and take any questions if you have any. Thank you. Sure. Well, there's two of the pistol ranges. On one of the versions actually said multi-use. We have built skeet and trap within one of those 50-yard by 50-yard pistol ranges before, and I would think that we could do so at this project as well. So yes.
Because that's a lot of competition, and there's an expert in this audience right now. His name is Glenn Camp. He's sitting back in the back, and I know he's one of the leading people with skeet and trap. I forget the awards he has. He has quite a few awards.
Yeah.
For that type of thing, and I think it would be needed here. If we're talking about competition and running some competition here and some things like that would be great. And then the other thing too is that there's a big push for cowboy shooting. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people in Onslow County go all the way out to Adams Creek to shoot. Mm-hmm. That's another, and it has a lot of competitions. These guys travel all over the United States.
Yeah, I suspect that this range will draw attention nationally from competition shooters, not only from 3-gun but from other sources too. The archery range that we are designing elsewhere is a 20-station competition range, so that also would bring folks in, nationally to this range.
I've seen that on the drawings. That's what I was concerned about. Some skeet and trap, and then the other would be some cowboy shooting range for that.
Yeah, I would be in favor of all the above. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, Madam Chair, once again, a little bit more information before actually I would read the resolution, which is the ask for the ask, and that is some graphics about where this is all located. This is Onslow County, and highlighted here is the 50,000 acres of Hoffman Forest, which is located in Onslow County. There are 30,000 acres that extend beyond the county lines into Jones County. And as a side note, we also have a letter of support from the Jones County manager who believes that the tourism opportunity here in Hoffman Forest, in Deppy Park, would help the town of Maysville, which is located just a couple miles past the county line. And they've got some food there and some gasoline there, and so they would also possibly benefit. So that gives you an overall view of where it's at in the county. Zooming in a little further, you'll see the 50,000 acres of Hoffman Forest, and the little rectangle, the purple rectangle on the right side of your screen, that is the area of the park that's currently developed. That is not the entire footprint of Deppy Park. And so now we'll zoom in a little farther. Okay, this is the footprint of, a little bit of the footprint of Deppy Park, and we'll need to zoom in a little bit more. This actually takes in the acreage, which is cleared by the roadside, and you can see the outlines of a parking lot there. And then there's a road that cuts through the property from the southwest to the northeast, and any of the shooting ranges you'll see in a moment will be located away from Highway 17, aimed toward the deepest part of the park. Now we're coming a little bit closer, and you'll see also there's an area of trees that extends from the upper right to the lower left. That is a wetlands, probable 404 wetlands area with hardwoods. We would not seek to disturb any of that. And then you'll see there's a large area of land that looks like it's in crop rows. And that's all managed timber. It's been cut over before. And that's generally the area that we would look at the shooting ranges in. So here's a diagram that we worked on with North Carolina Wildlife. And you see in the middle of this diagram, there's a road which goes left to right. That's that same logging road or access road that goes through the park currently. At the top, you'll see there's an archery bow range or course, and then you'll see the existing trail remains, the existing parking lot remains. We have located the tot lot farther away from the parking lot that would be used by people visiting the gun range, but all of the amenities that are currently at Deppy Park would remain. So there's nothing that's being taken away from Deppy Park. It's only things that would potentially be added to if the foundation and the endowment fund are able to agree to a change in the lease. Here you see a 200-yard rifle range, a 100-yard rifle range, a small range house which consists of bathrooms and a ticket office, and then 5 50-yard by 50-yard pistol ranges. Here's a picture of an existing range in another part of the state, and then we've got a couple of other pictures as well. So this is in Caswell County. This is a picture of a North Carolina wildlife range in Caswell County, and you can see the benches that they have. Also, all of these benches, or excuse me, all these ranges are handicap accessible, and you'll see that in just a moment. So here's another view of an existing shooting range facility, a pistol range facility, and then handicap access pistol range facility. Now, range operations and hours may vary from range to range. In your packet of information are proposed range hours, but all of those details basically are just for your information to show you that we've looked at budgeting, we've looked at operations. Specifically, the action before the board this evening is the request to make an official ask of the endowment fund and the foundation. So here's another picture. At Cold Lake, there's an archery range facility, so we are also looking at an archery range. And what we're talking about is a 3D bow range such as this. You would walk through the woods and we would have 3D targets set out in the woods for archery. And that's something that would also be done not at North Carolina Wildlife expense, but at Onslow County expense to make it a full and complete facility. Another picture. And that's pretty much it in terms of the location and some graphics. The resolution itself, Madam Chair, members of the board, if with your permission, I'll go ahead and read the resolution into the minutes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes, ma'am.
Before you read the resolution, I'd like to ask the board if there's any questions for you from board members.
I do have a question.
And I have a couple.
And that is, when you mentioned about the modification with the timber, can you just kind of go through that again and explain that for me?
Sure. And also our county attorney has reviewed the documents as well, so anything I missed, Ms. Moxley, if you would add in. Onslow, we entered actually into a three-party lease agreement that was signed by the endowment fund, at that time the Forestry Foundation, which was the predecessor of the Natural Resources Foundation in Onslow County. The county received the 372 acres under lease. The county later extended that lease to 2032, but did not yet extend the lease all the way to 2052, which was the full extent of the terms that are currently written. And you still have that ability to extend to 2052 as you will. However, it says in the lease agreement that the property would be developed as shown in Exhibit D. Exhibit D, to our knowledge, was a conceptual plan. Exhibit D certainly did not contemplate some of the facilities that we would be asking to construct now. It did not contemplate shooting ranges. I'm sure that years ago we didn't even know there was such a thing as a partnership with North Carolina Wildlife to create something or a grant program. So in order to, and also by the way, it said that the foundation retained timber rights, so we could not go in and actually cut down any of the trees. If you're going to develop ranges or pretty much anything else that's not in Exhibit D, I mean, we might be saying the same thing if we wanted to do 8 tennis courts. The county doesn't have the ability to go in and cut down trees for tennis courts. So we would need to seek permission from them to modify the lease and basically say, this is our new master plan for development, which would include what you saw earlier, the shooting ranges, the additional support facilities, range house, and we would like to develop it in this way. Will you give us permission to cut down the timber? And if we cut down the timber, we certainly would expect to pay them the value of the timber, if there is any timber, because that was part of the deal. They want to keep the timber rights and keep any timber off of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My questions are going to hopefully address the concerns of one of our speakers tonight. On the location, I think you made it perfectly clear that the reason this location has been sought is because we have no other location of property that we own. But I wanted to address his comment about are we going to pay taxes like he has to? And I wanted to say that in Hoffman Forest, they do not currently pay taxes. So the property, this facility would not pay taxes, but it would not be utilizing a piece of property that is a tax revenue currently because Hoffman Forest is exempt. The final statement too, on the percentage that we would be promising the foundation of revenue. Is there a minimum? Because we can't really evaluate how much initially our revenue source is going to be. Did we quote not to be less than?
Ma'am, in the proposal as it currently stands, we were quoting 5%, 8%, and 10%, and we factored our budget based on that, based on probable usage. If the usage is higher, it would be more. If the usage is less, it would certainly be less. But we did not quote a minimum. And the way we tried to establish how many people would use it, we looked at the usership of other North Carolina wildlife ranges in the state and the population of the areas or the counties around them. And we looked at our population in our county and tried to project things out. So we were looking at usership around the 8,000 persons per year mark. And that's how we tried to create a budget on that.
Is that how you also ascertained the fee for using the range?
Well, there were two things that we wanted to calculate with the fee. First of all, if we had about that many people, how much money we would generate. And the second thing is, what are the private sector entities charging? And I would say that's the driving force. We did not want to undercut the existing private sector. There are other places in the state that are charging $3 a day. Now, that is not saying that they provide a range safety officer necessarily. And that was also something that we talked about. In fact, I had that conversation with several people at a shooting range. Should we have a range safety officer? And the answer overwhelmingly is yes, both from a liability standpoint and just from a safety standpoint. So we would seek to have range safety officers. $16 would cover that, but also the $15 per day that's currently charged at the existing ranges, that would, $16 is a buck more than what they're charging. So that's how that was determined.
Okay.
That figure, the revenue that was generated that you have projected here was $123,000 and $887 a year for expenses, and then there was on the revenue side was $128,000 a year for daily passes and $2,000 a year for sale of targets and so forth for ear protection. How did you come up with the $128,800 a year?
Sir, our internal auditor came up with these figures by polling existing North Carolina wildlife ranges and then seeking to determine a budget. So we were looking at salaries and benefits, specifically on the expenditure side, salaries and benefits, uniforms, those things would be determined if we in fact had that range with county personnel. One thing that I talked with both private ranges about, Sportsman's Lodge and Flatwoods, is that as an alternative, we could seek a request for proposal from private sector to manage the range operations instead of county personnel doing it, basically contracted employees. So in terms of this budget that you have on page 62, all of that was generated by our internal auditor who's looking at parks and recreation operations. So for instance, how much would a cell phone bill cost, network connection or connectivity, electricity, minimum water, We had $1,500 for maintenance and repair of facility, and we came up with basically, $123,887. And of course, the contribution to the Forestry Foundation in year one would be $6,540. So that's what we were looking at in terms of a budget. And then the revenue would fluctuate based on usage, but this seemed to be a reasonable number based on what places are doing in other places.
Is the $16 fee would that, the $16 fee per person, would that generate enough interest for somebody not to use a $15 a day range fee?
Sir, that would be purely speculation on my part. I think people will go based, in conversation with Mr. Fitzpatrick at Flatwoods Outfitters, people go where it's closest to them, where they're comfortable. The purpose here is to provide one more venue for an expanding population to go and shoot in a safe manner. So I couldn't tell you where people will go.
Now, in the expenditure section of the budget, I know from past experience, liability insurance and stuff, is that hidden here in some of these numbers, what the liability insurance cost would be for range, because you've got to have it?
Well, we currently, as a government agency, carry general liability insurance for all kinds of activities that we have. So we would be looking at our existing policies,
Okay.
as well as the fact that as a unit of government, at a point in time, we also have sovereign immunity. But to the extent that we are insured, it would be required. And the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners will cover this range as well.
I think one thing that we need to not lose focus of is this is not just something that would be provided for our citizens, but this would be a tremendous draw to tourism. And I think when you are having competition shoots or archery competition or skeet competition, the amount of revenue coming in that tourism is bringing is probably much greater than what the actual gate is providing. And I know the initial cost, we're looking at that coming out of tourism fund, not the property tax fund. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. As stated earlier, North Carolina Wildlife would cover 100% of the range themselves, but the parking lot, the bathrooms, the septic system, that would all have to be from the county. So we would be looking at about $123,000 per year coming out of tourism funding. And we gain about $1.7 million per year in occupancy tax revenues.
Okay. If there's no further,
You said you had talked to the foundation.
I talked to the Endowment Fund of North Carolina State University, specifically the Director of Real Estate.
Madam Chair, I have one other quick question.
Sure.
And that is on page 63, the range use projections. The participant counts, those numbers, are those like mid-range numbers? Or are they like a higher end of looking at the numbers throughout the state of other areas? You know, when I know you said you pulled those numbers, and I was just wondering if that was the average, high, mid-range? What are those numbers?
Those participant counts is about 8,050 for 16-17, and 2031, 2032, you'll see it doesn't go up a whole lot, 8,250.
Right.
We're trying to be conservative
Gotcha.
with the amount of people that would be coming. So we felt like, based on two things, the population within an easy driving distance of Deppy Park
Okay.
at a facility which could handle competitions like this is close to 500,000 citizens. Almost 500,000 citizens live within a 45-minute, 1-hour drive, or it touches counties within that 45-minute, 1-hour drive. According to the Sports Commission letter, which you'll see in your packet, there's not another shooting facility that's like the one planned here within a 2-hour drive of Onslow County. So we actually believe that these projections would be on the lower end,
Gotcha.
considering the population that we'd be serving, and, quite frankly, we're a fairly unique population. There are a few gun-friendly people in Onslow County. So we believe that with active duty military, retired military, the families of active duty military and retired military, we would actually have a greater usage than this. Now, these numbers are higher than some places where North Carolina Wildlife is building ranges. That might be in part due to the number of benches or seats at the range that they're constructing in other places. This would be one of the larger ranges constructed by Wildlife. For instance, I believe in Pender County, in the Holly Shelter Game Lands, and Mr. Christopherson could tell you the exact number, but the number of benches for pistol and rifle are much smaller than the number proposed here, right, Mr. Christopherson?
Yeah, the Holly Shelter Range has one rifle range and one pistol range. I think there's about 10 or 12 benches at each, so this would be significantly larger range than that location.
I got one other inquiry. If we put this range in place and everything works out with the endowment and I know what the sheriff, we've had people come up here and speak about shooting next door and stray bullets, and it seems like there's so many of the CCW classes that there's so many ranges that people just created in their backyard. Are we going to do anything? Are we looking at maybe doing something to restrict that down the road? Because this is what we're really trying to address also, is 2 or 3-fold, maybe with an ordinance or maybe with some other restriction in zoning to disallow these things, because it's not a property rights situation. It's a safety situation that we're faced with every day, and the sheriff can attest to all the calls that go on, and we've had people come up here and complain about it before us before, so I think we need to look at something like that also.
Yes, sir, and as you'll see in the sheriff's letter, that has been a concern of law enforcement. Not only would they seek to try to dissuade people from doing that, he also makes reference, and in fact, I'll turn there just for a moment, he makes reference to the number of concealed carry permits. Sheriff Miller writes, there are many firearms enthusiasts in Onslow County, which is made clear by the Sheriff's Office issuing an average of 312 concealed carry permits per month and 932 pistol purchases permits each month. It's become evident over the past year there's a lack of safe places for the public to target shoot. This is corroborated by the number of complaints of property damage reported by landowners and the North Carolina Forestry Service. Much too often, a well-intentioned gun owner will go into private land, state-owned land or game lands and set up makeshift targets to do target shooting. While they have no intention of creating a problem, they often do cause property damage as reported by nearby neighbors and landowners. So basically, yes, this is not only addressing a problem that's out there, but it would give the sheriff's office another place to practice as well. Currently, they use the Holly Ridge facility. Under this proposal, the shooting range would be closed to the public on Mondays, which would allow specifically law enforcement to go out and shoot, and would also allow for range maintenance when they're not in that location.
Well, I really think if we do something if we give somebody a place to go, then it also, and we make restrictions on the people that are doing it, that's not doing it safely, it would help the folks from the gentleman that was up here speaking a few minutes ago with these other private small businesses. It would also promote their business, because the people would have to go to be safe then to those other private ranges and so forth. So I really I think that would be part of this, in my opinion.
Mr. Manager, will you read the resolution, and I would say to Commissioner Bright, after we find out whether or not
Absolutely.
we're going to be granted this request, then we could address your concerns at a workshop and bring some ordinances
Absolutely.
before the board.
Resolution 16-003, State of North Carolina, County of Onslow, partnership to create a public shooting range at Onslow County Deputy Park. whereas the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, hereafter NC Wildlife, have constructed public shooting ranges across the state to promote the safe and responsible use of firearms, increase environmental protection, and enhance outdoor recreation. And whereas North Carolina Wildlife is willing to fund the construction of a public shooting range in Onslow County for the benefit of the citizens of North Carolina. And whereas the county commissioners of Onslow County are strong supporters of the Second Amendment rights of citizens and seek to limit illegal shooting and promote environmental protection. And whereas Onslow County is home to 3 United States Marine Corps installations and a unique population of active duty and retired armed forces who both respect and participate in competitive and recreational shooting sports. And whereas data from the Jacksonville-Onslow Sports Commission indicates that range facilities in Onslow County would facilitate shooting tournaments and tourism, generating additional tax dollars for Onslow. And whereas Onslow County currently leases Deppy Park, remotely situated along U.S. Highway 17, and which is within reasonable driving distance of over 496,000 citizens. And whereas Deppy Park is ideally situated for a shooting range facility, located as it is within a conservation zone, as depicted in the county's comprehensive plan and underlying zoning district. And whereas the county has officially confirmed that the placement of a public shooting range will not interfere with military training exercises and will not preclude nearby property owners' rights to develop land consistent with the land use regulations of the County of Onslow. Therefore, be it resolved that the County of Onslow hereby, 1, gives notice to the Endowment Fund of North Carolina State University and the North Carolina Natural Resources Foundation that Onslow County is exercising the remaining 4 options to extend the lease for Deppy Park to become effective January 1, 2033, and terminate on December 31, 2052, and authorizes the chairman to sign such notice on behalf of Onslow County, a copy of which is fully incorporated herein by reference. 2, states its intent to form a joint partnership with North Carolina Wildlife to create a safe shooting range facility for the citizens of North Carolina at Deppy Park, contingent upon the successful conclusion of all necessary studies and approval of necessary lease or other legal documents. 3, officially request that the owner of the underlying fee and lessor of Deppy Park join with Onslow County and North Carolina Wildlife to create this valuable public amenity and share in proceeds from the shooting range to support the programs of North Carolina State University. 4, respectfully request that Onslow County's legislative delegation, the Honorable Speaker of the House, the Honorable President Pro Tempore of the Senate, and the Honorable Governor of North Carolina support this worthy state-county partnership to the extent of their respective abilities.
Can I have a motion? Motion to approve. A second? Is there a second to the motion to?
I'll make a second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? At this time, the board needs a 10-minute break. If we could take 10 minutes, we'll be right back. I'm going to call this meeting back to order. We will resume our commissioners' meeting. Mr. Manager, what's your next item?
Madam Chair, next item is item B, New River Dredging. This item will be presented by Mr. Ben Warren, Planning Director. Mr. Warren.
The item that we have for your consideration this evening is an amendment to an existing interlocal agreement that we have with the town of North Topsail Beach. Last fall, around October of 2015, we entered into an interlocal agreement for a dredging project for the New River Inlet. And it's a pipeline dredging project that will primarily dredge in the vicinity of Cedar Bush Cut and also the channels to Jacksonville in the vicinity of the Intercoastal Waterway. At the time we entered into the interlocal agreement, there was a cost share with the state of North Carolina, and at that time it was a 50-50 match. The state provided 50% and the local entities provided 50%, and so we split that with the town of North Topsail, with Onslow County and North Topsail each providing 25%. Since the time we entered into that interlocal agreement, the General Assembly changed that funding formula, and now the state contributes 67% of the total project cost. And so because of that, we needed to do an amendment to the interlocal agreement. Another aspect of it was when we did the original proposal, it was about a $1.6 million project because we wanted to keep the local contributions down to around $400,000. Because of the increase in the state share, we were able to expand the scope of the project, and so the anticipated project now is approximately $2.4 million, and that allowed us to include a larger area for the dredging project. So we got a much larger project at basically the same contribution for Onslow County. And so the request this evening is for the Board of Commissioners to consider amending the interlocal agreement with the town of North Topsail Beach to reflect the increased cost share on the state of North Carolina's behalf.
And these monies are tourism monies.
Yes, ma'am. Onslow County's contribution does come solely from tourism dollars.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Item C is a records retention schedule, Onslow County Department of Social Services. Ms. Heidi Bauer, our Social Services Director, will be presenting this item and answer questions of the board. Director Bauer?
Good evening, Commissioners. The Department of Social Services is required to follow the records retention schedule set forth by the State Archives of North Carolina. They recently changed their records retention schedule, and the department needs to adopt that schedule. The request is that the Commissioners will adopt the schedule and allow the chairman to sign all documents necessary.
Do I have a motion? A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Bauer.
Item D, Diabetes Prevention Program, Pilot Course. Ms. Pamela Brown, our Community Relations Officer from the Onslow County Health Department, is here to present this item to the board and answer any questions.
Good evening, thank
Good
you.
evening.
The Health Department would like to present a diabetes prevention program for the community. We had come before the commissioners a few years ago asking for a set fee, but we would like to do a pilot class based on a few changes in the curriculum, and we would like to offer the class for $100 for this pilot class that would begin very soon. The class is an evidence-based program. It's approved by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's something that we have evidence that it works. There is a large percentage of our population that is pre-diabetic, and this class specifically targets those who are pre-diabetic to keep them hopefully from developing the disease. It's a very comprehensive program. It lasts for a year. It provides a lot of information, but specifically focuses on lifestyle changes, including increased physical activity, as well as weight loss, and then again some lifestyle changes, so that about 8.8% of Onslow County's population is diabetic, but we have about 16,000 at risk of becoming diabetic, and this class is a proven course that will help people to maybe avoid that pathway. So again, we would like to offer this class for $100. We had set a higher fee at an earlier time, but there have been some changes to the program. There's also been some changes to the curriculum of the program. Onslow County was actually one of the first counties in North Carolina to offer this class. Now other counties' health departments are starting to offer it, and other organizations, and we just would like an opportunity to do a bit more research on what is a good cost for the residents of Onslow County that will cover our costs and also not provide a cost barrier to taking this class. And that's why we're asking to be able to offer it a pilot class with the new curriculum for $100 per participant.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Brown, if you'll stay right there, the next item is Triple P funding, and you're also presenting that item if you would, please.
Yes. The state has given us the opportunity to have an additional $32,083. This is money that the state is providing to counties that already offer the Triple P, the Positive Parenting Program, in their jurisdiction. So there is no county match or anything. It's just some additional funding that has come to the state. We actually have a very robust Triple P program in Onslow County, offered through the BASE, through the Partnership for Children, and also through peers. But this would allow us to expand that program. There are 5 levels that can be offered, and we focus with the staffing that we have and the opportunities that we have, we focus on one level. But this is going to allow us to train an additional about 9 staff members in another level, which will allow us to give some one-on-one help and support to families. It's kind of a couple of prongs. One of them is helping parents deal with very specific behavioral issues that they might be experiencing with their children. And the other is just in general to help parents to have the skills that they need to really set that family and that child up for success. So we're requesting the acceptance of this funding so that we can do the additional training and expand this program within Onslow County.
Thank you.
Move the request.
Second, and there are no strings attached to receiving this grant.
That's
All in
correct.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Item F, Food and Lodging Funds. Mr. Walter Doyle, our Environmental Health Director, is here to present this item to the board and answer questions. Director Doyle?
Based on the percentage of food inspections done in Onslow County, supplied by the Department of Health and Human Services, we respectfully request the amount of $17,025 be approved for receiving this money. This money comes from the DHHS to us. This is based on the number of inspections we have completed over the course of years. This year, we have, in 2015, we completed 99% of the inspections. That goes back to, from 2013, we were only at 82%. So we're at 82% to up to 99% now. We're on target this year to complete 100% of the inspection rates. My expectation and the health director's expectation is to complete 100% of all inspections yearly.
Okay.
I have a question first. Mr. Doyle, will you tell the audience and the TV watching that how many inspections do we pull a year and how many restaurants, and we do the city of Jacksonville also, all the municipalities?
We do all of Onslow County exempt for Camp Lejeune and the bases. We go on the base to do 1 inspection, but we have a total of 473 food service establishments in the county that we conduct inspections on. They range from an inspection for once a year up to 4 times a year. We also have vendors and festivals that we do on the weekends. In 2015, we had 34 festivals that had 75 vendors.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And with that, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously.
Item G is Office 365. This presentation will be given by our IT Director, Mr. Glenn Hasted. Mr. Hasted?
Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. In the county, we have 3 current versions of Microsoft Office running going back to 2003. We have 2003, 2007, 2010. The latest version that we have is 2 revs back. 2013, 2016 is the current version. This product would allow us to upgrade to the latest and greatest version at any time as soon as it's released. It will also have with it SharePoint services, which will be a collaborative environment, a collaborative intranet environment that will allow the teams and the departments and the project teams to have more effective communication with each other. It also gives the ITS department and some of the technical people in the county access to a System Center Configuration Manager, which allows us to deploy software remotely and also to remote control machines and better serve our customers. It will also move mail up into the cloud, to Microsoft's cloud, and it will take it out of harm's way here. We are in the path of the storm, and it'd be really nice to have a good disaster recovery business continuity plan. Plus, there's a significant cost savings over an enterprise agreement. You'll see in your packets, I've done a return on investment based on figures given to me from Microsoft, and those figures are very conservative. I tried to leave out numbers that were speculative at best.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, Glenn, have we moved, our systems, have they moved from Windows 7 to 10, or 8 to 10 yet, or?
No, sir. Most of the systems that we have in the county are running Windows 7. We have not moved to 8 or to Windows 10. There's some compatibility issues with some of the software that we have.
If there was some talk among the people that was in the technology system that Windows 10, we were going to be forced to go to Windows 10 because they weren't going to upgrade Windows 7 or 8. Is that something that's in the works, or?
Absolutely.
And is this new system compatible with Windows 10?
Yes, sir. That is in the works. That they are not going to be cutting off support for Windows 7 for quite a few years.
Okay.
So we should be okay in the interim.
Madam Chair, I've got one question.
Sure, go ahead.
Ma'am.
Is there additional licensing fee annually attached to this, or that's inclusive?
It's an annual fee. It's a subscription, is what it is. So there's no additional charges on top of this, no.
So I guess in your expert opinion, you think this would meet the needs of the county as far as their IT for years to come? I know that's awful hard to say because every 6 months they're coming out with something new and better.
It seems to be in this arena, at least, as far as the Microsoft Office suite, it will certainly fill the need for as long as the contract is in place.
Okay. Because I know currently we're behind in our technology, so.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Item H is passenger facility charge application number 7. At this time, Mr. Chris White, our airport director, will present this item to the board.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. In 1996, the county began collecting and utilizing passenger facility charges, or PFCs, to fund the local portion of FAA-approved capital projects. The use of these funds is restricted to certain eligible projects, such as professional services, facility improvements, major equipment purchases, and airfield construction. In the past, these funds have been used for program administration, the new passenger terminal, new roadways, aircraft aprons, runway rehabilitation, to purchase fire trucks and other equipment. Federal law currently limits the amount collected at $4.50 per departing passenger. Applications are valid for up to 3 years and must be revised or new applications filed anytime a new project or project materially changes. This action will create the required budget in Fund 69 to hire the specialized consultant who will prepare and submit the new PFC application to the FAA. The cost of this consulting service is not to exceed $65,000 and will be funded by PFCs. The specific action requested is for the board to approve the project ordinance for the development of PFC application number 7.
What's the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Questions? Chris, what is our passenger facility fee presently? Is it the $3 or?
Our PFC is currently $4.50 as mandated. All this will do is it'll enlarge the group of projects that are approved, and it'll extend the collection date.
Okay, so we are at that, okay.
Yes.
One quick question.
Sure.
Also, Madam Chair, Chris, what is our normal collection rate on that, like annually?
Well, it varies based on the number of enplanements, and we
Gotcha.
generally collect about 95% of passengers
Okay.
pay that. If you travel on a ward ticket, for example, you do not pay a passenger facility charge. Generally, we generate about $750,000 a year.
Okay.
And that's only for those people departing from Albert J. Ellis, right?
That's correct. And these
So-
dollars are collected locally and spent locally.
Collected locally and spent locally. Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. That brings us to consent agenda. Nothing was pulled. Do we have another public comment?
Madam Chair, there are no individuals that have signed up for the second public comment period.
Okay. Mr. Manager, would you have some comments for us tonight?
No, ma'am, I have no comments this evening. Thank you.
No comments. Okay, commissioner comments. We'll start with Mr. Bright. Mr. Bright?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Briefly, I got an email Thursday or Friday. I think I remember sending it to you, but it was concerning Trillium, our mental health agency that disperses Medicaid funds for our mental health. And I've discussed this somewhat with Sherry, and we've got a meeting Thursday evening at 4, and I've got two. Paul, you have to fill in for the MPO. I'm not going to be able to go to both of them at the same time, but it's at 3:30, but this one's at 4 at Trillium. So we have been notified that by their regulation, we've been taken, all the counties has been taken out of the picture for us consolidation. So now we have been, by the Secretary's rule, we're going to be consolidating with East Point, East Point was one of the agencies before that we were looking at. That was Columbus County, Duplin County. We're going to be merging with those 11 counties, and that's going to put us in I believe, is it a 35 county catchment area for mental health Medicaid, and I'm going to learn more about this in a meeting Thursday, and I'll get back with you soon, or me or Sherry will get back with you. The structure of the board is probably, that board is going to change because of the bigger catchment area. And as all of us know, on the campaign trail, there was a lot of concern about mental health, not only for Onslow County, but I'm concerned about it statewide. Our whole state is in a situation that needs to be looked at and fixed. But that bigger catchment area is just going to put us in a less visible position, because when you got 35 people, 35 commissioners at the table, not a lot can be done for individual counties.
So what did we go from a 24 to a 35?
From a 24, and they've actually taken, at the direction of the Secretary of State or mental health, they've actually taken us from 8 LMEs now statewide to just 4. There's going to be Western Mountain Section, there's going to be Foothills, and there's going to be a Central Section, and then the Eastern Section. And we're going to be from Columbus County to the ocean, and we're going to be from South Carolina to the Virginia line. That's the area we're in. 361,000 patients for Medicaid in those catchment areas. I will say that through some of the local groups, Dawn Rochelle from Partnership for Children, she's really involved in trying to get something started with this so we can get a facility here. And I've talked to Jimmy Farrington. He's a commissioner in Carteret County that sits on Trillium Board with me for his county. And they are intending on bringing their sheriff and their board to this meeting that when is it, Sherry, the 28th of? 28th, and we'll see what we can do to partner with either getting Trillium to go ahead and get us a treatment facility here for beds for detox, so we can get these people out of the hospital, out of jail. They don't need to be there. They need to be treated, and that's the problem with mental health. They're just being sent to the wrong facility for what's wrong with them. And it is an illness. It's not a situation we need to take lightly. But other than that, that's all I have, Madam Chair. And I hate to take the time up, but I thought it was important.
Yeah, well, keep us informed. Ms. Williams?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and I will just say thank you to all of those who voted for me, and I would say even more importantly, thank you for those of you who did not vote for me. And I state this openly because I will be going forward after November to take on additional tasks. And I look forward to serving the next 8 months with excitement, passion, and believe me, I'm not going anywhere in these 8 months. Thank you, Onslow County.
Mr. Jarman?
Good night.
Good. Mr. Vice Chair?
I just want to piggyback off of what Jack said. We started out, and Jack can help me out here a little bit, but it was Onslow County was by itself at first, and then we went to Onslow Carteret, and then we went to what, Jack, with New Hanover?
Went to coastal care, which was.
So we went 1, 2,
counties.
5, 24, 35. That's no good for us. We got to figure out the people who got to speak up and email the legislators and stuff that we needed to get something done for Onslow County. And I know there's a lot of people talking about, intox and whatnot to deal with that. And it's important to have that for our community. Thank you.
I'll just make a statement that we're starting the budget process, and I will tell everyone, I believe that this year is going to be even tighter than last year, and tough questions are going to have to be asked, and tough decisions are going to have to be made. But I have confidence in this board and the staff that we will find a balanced budget and have it ready to go on July 1. So if there's nothing else to come before this board, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.